The emergency klaxons echoed through the crystalline halls of the Galactic Council chambers, their shrill warning cutting through the heated debate that had raged for 3 standard cycles. Ambassador Zixthera of the Velkari delegation slammed, her 4-fingered hand against the podium, her bioluminescent patches flaring bright orange in frustration. "The mathematics are irrefutable," she declared, her translator device struggling to convey the clicking consonants of her native tongue. "The Devourer fleet will reach Kepler 442b in 18 rotations. Any attempt to evacuate the colony will result in total annihilation of both the rescue fleet and the 3 million settlers." The holographic display above the assembly showed the grim reality. A writhing mass of dark vessels, each one larger than a city, consuming everything in their path as they swept through the outer rim territories. The Devourers had appeared from the void between galaxies 6 months ago, and nothing, no weapon, no shield, no fleet, had slowed their advance. "The Thermalki battlecruisers lasted 14 minutes, reported Admiral Kethvar, his scaled hide a pale green that indicated deep unease. "The Zerion defense platforms were consumed in 7. Even our most advanced quantum torpedoes merely fed them." Murmurs of despair rippled through the assembled delegates. The Kepler 442b colony represented the largest civilian population in the threatened sector. Scientists, families, children from dozens of species who had built a thriving world in the shadow of twin stars. "Perhaps," suggested the ethereal voice of the Lumina representative, its form shifting between states of matter, "we should consider the strategic value of preserving our remaining fleets rather than—" "You're talking about abandoning 3 million souls," interrupted a new voice from the back of the chamber. Every head, tentacle, and sensory organ turned toward the human delegation. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood slowly, her plain black uniform a stark contrast to the elaborate ceremonial garments worn by the other species. Behind her, the small human, contingent only 12 representatives among the hundreds of delegates, maintained expressions of grim determination. "The humans wish to speak," announced Secretary General Vothran, his ancient voice carrying the weight of 1,000 years. "Though I fail to see what perspective a species with barely a century in space can offer." Chen stepped forward, ignoring the subtle insults that had become commonplace since humanity's recent admission to the Council. "You're right about the, mathematics. Any conventional rescue operation would be suicide." A collective sigh of relief passed through the chamber. Finally, the reckless humans were showing sense. "That's why we're not proposing a conventional rescue operation," Chen continued. "We're volunteering for an unconventional one." The relief transformed into confusion, then alarm. Zixthera's patches flared from orange to deep red. "Surely you cannot be suggesting—" "Operation Broken Arrow," Chen announced, activating her personal display. "A high-speed insertion using modified human vessels. We go in fast, evacuate as many as possible, and use the chaos to buy time for additional runs." The chamber erupted in protests. Admiral Kethvar's scales had turned nearly white. "Ambassador Chen, the humans possess perhaps the most primitive vessels in the Council fleet. Your largest ships are barely frigate class by our standards." "Which makes them fast," Chen replied calmly. "And expendable." "Expendable?" The word seemed to cause physical pain to the Lumina delegate. "You speak of lives as if they were mere resources." Chen's expression hardened. "I'm speaking of acceptable losses to save acceptable gains. 3 million civilians against— how many volunteers?" Her aide, Lieutenant Commander Zhang, stepped forward. "Ma'am, we've received responses from Earth Command. The first volunteer lists are already filled." "How many?" Secretary General Vothran asked, his curiosity overcoming his disdain. 15,000 for the initial wave, Zhang reported. Another 30,000 for support operations. The chamber fell silent. Even the translation devices seemed stunned into temporary malfunction. That's twice the number we estimate would be needed, whispered Zixthera. Humans volunteered twice, Chen said simply. Some people signed up for both the rescue runs and the covering operations. We had to establish a lottery system. Admiral Keithvar shook his massive head. You're all insane. The survival probability for each vessel is less than 12%. We know. Chen pulled up tactical displays showing Earth's rapid refit operations. We're stripping armor for speed, cargo space for evacuation pods. Every ship becomes a one-way ticket. And the pilots understand this? Asked the Lumina delegate. Zhang smiled, an expression that seemed to unnerve several species. Sir, we had to turn away volunteers. The waiting list is 3 times longer than our entire active fleet. Secretary General Vothran leaned forward. Why? Your species has no cultural connections to Kepler 442b. No trade relationships, no historical ties. Most humans have never met a Kepler colonist. Chen was quiet for a moment, then looked up at the vast assembly. Because they're people. Because 3 million lives matter more than mathematical probabilities. Because when someone needs help, you help them. Even if it means certain death. Zixthara's patches had shifted to a confused purple. Especially then, Chen replied. That's when it matters most. The debate continued for another 6 hours, but the outcome was inevitable. The Council couldn't authorize the mission. The losses would be too great. But they also couldn't stop the humans from launching their own independent operation. 18 hours later, the first human ships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system. They were ugly, scarred vessels hastily modified for speed over survival. Behind them came wave after wave of similar craft, each one packed with evacuation pods and crewed by volunteers who had signed their own death warrants. The Devourer fleet had arrived early. What followed became known as the 18-hour miracle. The human ships dove into the swarm like minnows attacking sharks, darting between massive alien hulls while loading desperate civilians. Some ships died within minutes. Others somehow survived multiple runs before succumbing to the inevitable. But they kept coming. Every time a human vessel fell, 2 more appeared to take its place. When the smoke cleared, and the final evacuation ship limped away from the consumed system, the mathematics had proven wrong. The humans had saved 2.7 million lives at a cost of 8,000 volunteers. The Council declared it impossible. The humans called it Tuesday. And when the next crisis came 6 months later, humanity's volunteer lists filled up twice as fast.